Hello, welcome to video 3, Evidence Collection. This video provides guidance and support on how and where to best collect evidence in order to inform your quality indicator ratings. Our goal with this video is to provide some suggestions on how to leverage the existing systems, staff, feedback loops, and resources you already have in place to paint the most accurate picture of how your remote program is running. In SCRI's approach to quality improvement, we collect evidence in 3 different ways. Documentation, which is the data and written collateral that support and inform the planning, implementation, and evaluation of your remote program. Interviews, which provide feedback from key stakeholders, including staff, youth, as well as families and caregivers. And finally, observation, or the opportunity to view staff engaging with youth during activities. While there are some added challenges and considerations when approaching evidence collection in a remote environment, these 3 forms of collection still hold true and will be incredibly valuable as you are reflecting on your program quality. Documentation refers to the collateral that speaks to the systems, processes, and ongoing data that are used to support the planning and delivery of remote programming. On the screen, you'll see some examples of typical documentation we recommend collecting. How do you collect and review daily and weekly attendance? What does this say about engagement? Have policies and expectations been made clear to youth, families, and caregivers? What information was provided to families and caregivers during the recruitment and enrollment process? Was there a family or caregiver orientation or welcome letter sent home? Are there expectations to check in regularly with families and caregivers over the course of the program? What about your staff? Are they clear on expectations, procedures, and protocols to keep the program running smoothly? Is there time built into their schedules to plan activities or to check in with youth, families, and caregivers? Are they providing any written documentation of activity planning? Are they provided with any feedback on the planning of activities? Collecting and reviewing supporting documentation can help you answer these questions and reflect on the remote quality indicators. Accompanying documentation, interviews can provide a more in-depth and nuanced amount of information in terms of what is taking place within your remote program. Although you may have provided written documentation that supports staff, youth, as well as families and caregivers, this information can occasionally get lost in translation, especially as people are adapting to the new realities of COVID-19. Interviews can help you fill in any gaps in the information or data, as well as provide a greater depth of context for what is going well and where there are opportunities for improvement. On the screen, you'll find some typical opportunities where you may be able to ask questions and collect feedback from key stakeholders that will support you in reflecting upon the remote quality indicators. If these opportunities are not currently a component of your remote program, consider if there is time and space to incorporate these or to reach out to individual stakeholders in order to solicit further feedback. When talking with staff, take the time to ask them about their experience working in the remote program. What has been going well? What has been challenging? Have the resources, training, systems, and processes set them up to be successful? What are their impressions of the youth experience? How has engagement been? Have they been able to provide feedback to youth? How about connecting with families and caregivers? Have they been able to do this regularly? What have those discussions been like? In speaking with families and caregivers, what has their experience been like overall? What has been going well and what has been challenging from their perspective? How often are they connecting and communicating with staff? What are their impressions of the youth experience and engagement? Has the schedule and structure of the remote program worked for them? Have they been supported in creating a learning environment in the home? What would have made the experience better for them? If there is the opportunity to speak with youth, what has their experience been like? Have the resources, schedule, and structure kept them engaged in learning? What would they recommend in terms of opportunities for improvement? These are just a few examples of questions that could be asked and the indicators themselves will provide guidance for the types of questions and information that would be useful to collect when speaking with staff, youth, as well as families and caregivers. Finally, we come to observations. During in-person programming, observations are generally the largest evidence collection component of the quality improvement process. In the remote environment, observations can be more challenging and require more intentional planning and preparation than the typical pop-in. As with any observation, you want to reduce disruption to the lessons and activities as much as possible so that staff and youth can remain focused on the learning. On the screen, you'll find some recommendations to support you in conducting observations in a remote learning environment, if there is the ability to do so. First, be sure to notify staff about the date that you will be joining and allow staff enough time to let youth know they will be having a visitor. Do your best to join at the beginning of sessions so that you're not creating a distraction in the middle of a lesson or activity. This also gives you time to quickly introduce yourself, provide some context for why you are joining, and participate in an icebreaker to help continue the focus on building trust. Once you have introduced yourself, your role is mostly to observe. However, interacting naturally as appropriate will help to maintain a warm and welcoming environment. Plan to stay either for the full activity or at least 15 to 20 minutes to allow time to see staff and youth collaborating and engaging in the remote environment. While we have reviewed some typical and suggested ways to collect evidence, this list is by no means exhaustive, and there are many other ways to collect this information for your remote program. Take some time to review the indicators in the Remote Quality Reflection tool and determine the best way to collect this information for your program. Thank you for participating in video 3 of the Remote Quality Reflection tool video tutorial series. We hope that you found this helpful in understanding ways to collect evidence and suggest you move on to video 4, Reflection and Continuous Improvement. For more information on SCRI, please reach out to info@sperlingcenter.org.